Across the Park podcast is proud to be sponsored by Globe Gas and Heating. For the best kitchen and bathroom renovations, boiler servicing and repair, and central and underfloor heating in the Northwest, head over to globecentralheating.com and quote Across the Park for a free quote.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Across the Park podcast 2022-2023 season review. Apologies, we did have some issues when recording this show, so you'll notice after 25-26 minutes it flips from me and Millsy sitting face to face to an online version of the show. Apologies, we didn't actually realise that we'd lost the audio until after we'd recorded the show, which was a sickener for us as well, believe me. Hopefully it doesn't stop you from enjoying the show. And thanks again for all your support. Up the toffees.
Hello, welcome to the Across the Park podcast 22-23 season review. Yes, Judgy, we have got to do it. First of all, we needed that month off, didn't we? June was nice.
Yeah, I was actually looking forward to this. Tonight's the first time I've looked forward to a podcast in a while. Well, apart from one of the ones I've just recently recorded. But yeah, it definitely needed the break. Feeling refreshed.
I've had a few messages on Twitter. When's your podcast out? A lot of great content out there from other people who've kept that going, but we were exhausted. If you watched our instant match reaction after the Bournemouth game, you've probably seen two men who were not just in need of a pint, in need of a holiday. So we've had it. We're back. We've got a packed schedule this summer for you. We've worked really hard behind the scenes on getting some good content. Before we get into this week's or this episode, Judgy, some of the guests we've had Dave, who runs the Winslow, and he's talking some great things about what the plans are for that. Katie Carter from the All Together Now campaign, talking about what's next for the campaign. Does it go away? Does it not? And you, my friend, very jealous with the Everton Giants. Mick Lyons.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we joked about it off air before we started, and even on air on the episode, how long it took us to make this happen. And, you know, I must have said 3 or 4 times in the first minute how privileged it was. I think I repeated that 3 or 4 times. But
you walked into a trio of legends, didn't you?
Well, no, not quite. I mean, this isn't on the podcast, so I'm not spoiling anything. But after we'd finished recording, Francesca, Mick's daughter, who you know was brilliant to put us in touch with, you know, with Mick and to put it together. She kept on mentioning how, you know, such and such is coming round at R2, and I'm just not really listening, oblivious, you know. But in fact, when you meet someone for the first time and like you shake hands with them and then someone introduces them and you just completely forget the name. Yeah. I was in one of them things where I was just like in a bit of a bubble. So anyway, we finished recording. I'm about to leave and she says, "Oh, he's here." So Colin Harvey walks in.
Mate, Colin Harvey.
And he goes, "All right, son." You recognise me, which is great. And Francesca reminded him of my name and stuff and what I do. And he's like, "Yeah, you know, how are you doing? And how's the podcast going?" And then his minder comes in behind him with a big pair of sunglasses on, and honestly, I just shook hands with him. And he walks past, I'm still talking to Colin, looks to me right, he took his sunglasses off. It's Joe Royle.
Big Joe, man.
Big Joe, in great nick, by the way, absolutely fantastic nick. And I obviously had to ask all 3 of them for the picture. Yeah. Nick was determined to get all of us on there, so I'd take a selfie. It was just mad moment. As soon as I got in the car, rang me dad. My dad was like, "Oh my God."
That picture got more likes on our socials than some of our shows.
Yeah,
just you with 3 Everton legends and obviously Francesca the daughter.
What a moment. But yeah, lovely afternoon and what a fantastic gentleman, lovely family, lovely home. Yeah, it was great. I mean, that's the second time now we've recorded in Colin Harvey's home, recorded in Mick Lyons' home. It's
doesn't get better,
special.
Does it?
Special.
Doesn't get better.
No.
We're not in the business of competing with other podcasts. When you look at what we're quite fortunate.
No, not fortunate. You've been persistent.
Harassment, yeah.
If anyone's looking for a private detective or trying to hunt someone down, Millsy's your man.
Michael Ball said that when we found Viv Busby. He was like, "How have you found Viv Busby?" Anyway, all those shows will be out in July. The schedule for the releases is over on our socials, Across the Park PC, on Twitter and Instagram. So it's Big Mick Lyons. We've got the All Together Now. We've got a show in the Winslow. We've also done a Tranmere Rovers season review as well. And we're going to be speaking to Alison, head of Alfie's squad, who we're members of, and talking all about a little bit of change they're going through in the charity and some ideas they've got. Lots of content, but let's get into last season. we are going to look back before we look forward. In our
We have
Everton WhatsApp group that me and Judgy are part of, some of our mates, last season's summer transfer window was a hot topic. Is Cody's a good signing? Is Vinagre enough cover? Is McNeil and Morpay going to be enough? If Solver Charlton did be replacing? It's hard to have a live argument and be right or be wrong. But when you look back now, that summer window just wasn't good enough, was it?
No, it wasn't. I don't think there's any question about that now. I won't lie, it was kind of halfway in between. I was bitterly disappointed to have lost Richarlison, although it was inevitable. I didn't feel as though like for like, of course, that we'd replaced him. But until we didn't replace Gordon, I was half satisfied. No, again, the Gordon one was coming, wasn't it?
Come on to that, like the view as well. It's a double-sided question. We never sold Anthony Gordon for a perceived £60 million. We battled to keep him. In hindsight, again, looking back.
I know. I mean, I did say at the time, take the money, because. But again, I wrongfully believed. It's strange, isn't it? Because the club turned that down, but then sold him for less because we needed to. So how poor was that? Looking back,
he stuck the gaff out. He was our top scorer on 3 goals, but he was stinking the gaff out.
Yeah, he had a good start, didn't he?
Yeah, he scored 2 in the first 4, I think.
Yeah, it was the away game. He got.
He scored at Brentford. He scored at Leeds. But our manager at the time, who we'll come on to again, Frank Lampard, he was in the press issuing strong hands-off warnings. The club wanted to keep Gordon.
Yeah, but you know what? Like, again, how poorly managed was that behind the scenes? So if someone has an eye on the books, they'd be saying, listen, Frank, we get 60, we can actually spend 20.
Yeah.
So be aware that if we sell them for 40 in January, there's nothing to spend there.
Yeah.
How poor is that?
I know.
Do you know what I mean? So, and that's the frustrating thing. But back to your question, yeah, it was a poor window. It was a poor window, wasn't it? And you know, it looks even worse because of the 2 signings, biggest signings, McNeil and Morpay, at the time, just didn't perform, did they?
Oh, it took McNeil 5 or 6 months.
Yeah,
and Morpay's still going.
He still hasn't. He still hasn't got going. And I've spoken to a few Brighton fans about him as well since, and they're just like, you don't get it. But then they don't watch Everton and see the way we play. Yeah. So it's not just on him, is it? It was, you know, it was certainly a square peg in a round hole. But it was a big round hole to fill, and that square peg wasn't even touching the sides, was it? I
went to the Dynamo Kiev game. I think you were away. It was the home pre-season friendly.
Yeah, McNeil.
Dominic Calvert-Lewin scored, and he looked fit. I also went to Blackpool away in pre-season, and I think London played that game. Actually, Lewin got some minutes. Anyway, the point I'm getting at is Lewin had a strong pre-season. The week leading up to that first game, news, he's broke down. Is it weeks? Is it month? That theme continued throughout the season.
It was so annoying, wasn't it? Every single episode we were going, is he fit? And that was like that was one of the things that like wore me out, you know.
I know.
Over the course of the season, it's like there was no news at all. It was just like nothing. It was so frustrating. That was one of the things that really done me head in, because like you're even trying to preview the game, and every time you're going, if he's fit, we might do this. If he's fit, we might do that.
Yeah, we could play different.
He's never ever there.
Well, that starts the season. If you remember, proper Everton, we tried to register Morpay for the Leeds away game and got it wrong, missed the time deadline or something. So in effect, you went into that first half, that first gap of the season, the first post of the season, with no strikers. Yeah. And we're looking like, when's Lewin fit? It's just so it's so frustrating. But the question I want to ask you in relation to Lewin is, again, we look in hindsight, we can be more right in hindsight than what we were at the time. I'm going to ask you the big question: can we rely on Dominic Calvert-Lewin going into next season?
No. You obviously touched on it then. He looked, you know, decent in pre-season, looked fit, etc. How many times have we said that? I mean, the last time he came back, I'll be the first to say, I thought it was as fit as I've ever seen him.
Yeah, we both said it, yeah.
And he still broke down.
And the manager said that he gave him longer
to
get him that fit. I could have threw him in last week, but I'm trying to give him
this
plan.
He did. He was getting frustrated himself. You could see it was against his own better judgment. It was against his instinct, wasn't it? He felt like saying, just get on and play. But he was going, no, I'm listening to the sports scientist. I'm going to give him extra time. And yeah, if he couldn't stay fit there, I just don't see where. I guess the only thing I keep thinking about is with a foil, as in someone else where you could give him a week off, where you could bring him off after 60 minutes, but there's no one anywhere near him at the club. That's the problem we've got. And that's the dilemma the manager has every time he puts him on the pitch. He knows that by taking him off, we become instantly significantly weaker.
We do, yeah.
And that's just, and when you get to that stage at the end of the season, when he comes into the team, we start looking like we can score goals. We start scoring goals, you know, getting 4-5 at Brighton, how do you take him out then? You just can't, can you? So it's just such a difficult one. But again, to go back to your question, we can't rely on him. That's absolutely for sure. And the manager, I think, is sure about that now. You know, the players that he's selling at the moment, there's no doubt he's raising whatever he can to buy one, if not two strikers.
Yeah, well, the reason I wanted to ask that is because I probably should have asked you that last season, and you probably should have given me that answer, but no one at the club even did. I think now
I probably wouldn't have, you know. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have said we can rely on him, but I probably would have said, you know, there's positions where we haven't even got a good first choice player. So maybe we need to address that. That is a position where if Calvert-Lewin's fit, we have got a good, perfectly able number 9 who can score your goals, if not create goals, if not make the team better in general. But when that number 9 or that player can't stay fit, then it's pretty pointless.
We started the season not too badly. I think after the Crystal Palace game in October, I think we were sort of bottom of the top half, or at least top of the bottom half, and it didn't seem by October that we were going to be in trouble. It didn't seem like we were going to get into Europe and have a great season. It didn't seem like we were going to be in trouble. All of a sudden, it just nosedived. Can you recall that season going into the Bournemouth doubleheader? Leicester done us at Goodison, and Leicester were bottom at the time. We had a terrible run. Can you recall maybe not feeling we were in trouble to then thinking, God, this is going bad quick?
I don't know, you know, I think like a lot of Evertonians up until a point kind of felt assured by Lampard, do you know what I mean? Like it was, he had this, and again, I don't know if, I think it's that aura, and I think it's the reason why he does consistently get jobs. Such a charming man, and he just, you know, he says words, and he's such a way with words, isn't he, in the press, and the way that he articulates the post-match press conferences. And I'll still say it now, I think he's one of the best managers we've had at breaking down the game after it. Like, he's almost nailed exactly what you were thinking as a fan. You go, yeah, you've nailed it. Like, surely we've got the right man here. And therefore, I don't think it did up until it was too late. I almost think the boards were in a similar position. Listen, I think the boards were holding on, playing, please turn it round, because we can't afford to sack another manager. Yeah. But at the same token, I think some of them are probably thinking, he's the man, he gets it.
It felt to me, the double header at Bournemouth, where I didn't go to the Bournemouth away game, and the full-time scenes, they come on, you know, Sky Sports News, whatever.
Yeah.
Shirts are getting thrown back at the players. The Bournemouth steward is separating the players from our away ends. We've been down there twice in a week.
Yeah, that's
Frank Lampard is saying sorry.
Yeah.
And then we break for the World Cup. Imagine we didn't. Imagine we had Wolves at home the following Saturday.
I know.
That saved him, didn't it? That break.
I don't know. It did. It saved his job. But with the benefit of hindsight, obviously we didn't come back any better, really, did we?
Oh, we lost to Wolves on Boxing
That's what I mean. So I think with the benefit of hindsight, when you've lost 2 games that badly, you almost want the chance to go, right, because those players, given what the fans, you know, how angry the fans were and stuff, those players you'd like to think would have been so determined to just put a shift in and get a result. And I think we'd have probably got a result, maybe not a win, but we'd have got a result. So I don't think they changed their manager at that point. I think Lopetegui didn't come in until probably after.
No, I think he was.
Was he?
I think he was brand spanking new.
Okay, fair enough. but again, I don't think the break helped us, did it? Because we come back and it was like everything's forgotten.
No, because we went to Australia. We beat a couple of no-mark teams in Australia, with no disrespect to the no-mark teams in Australia. And I think Anthony Gordon scored a hat-trick in one of the games, and Frank had his arms around the Australian Evertonians, and everything just seemed fine. And it was nowhere near fine. We didn't know what was to come in January. It all got chaotic. But I just think that break, and I can't put my finger on where it went wrong. Because like I said there, 1 minute we're mid-table, second minute, the stewards are separating our players from the fans. It just went dead quick. And if anyone in the comments can give us their opinion on where it started going wrong, because my personal opinion is it wasn't wrong at the start of the season.
I think the longer that the opposition or the other teams realise that you can't score goals, the more vulnerable you become defensively. And that we went down to Bournemouth, and it was like, I remember the first half an hour of the game, I didn't watch it, but I was listening to it and stuff, and we were just kind of getting, and it was the same with Lampard. I remember we were a little bit like that under Martinez towards the end. We'd have a lot of possession, we'd look like we can create things, but I think Bournemouth thought after half an hour, these can't score these. Got nothing about them, and they just went bang. The minute they scored, we went to bits, and it was like then the penny dropped for the rest of the league.
Past these now,
you know what? Let's just go at Everton, because even if they do score, they can't score more than one. And it was like suddenly it was like the gloves were off for everyone.
And a lot of times watching that season, we just seem to clear it.
Yeah.
And be like, it's going to come back on us now because we've got nothing to make it stick. Tarkowski, wasn't he?
Yeah.
On record saying like the attackers have got to do more. It can't keep coming at us.
Yeah. And I think, look, there's a multitude of things, but I think that was the biggest factor for me. And again, having played at an half-decent level, if you can't score goals, it puts pressure on the rest of the team. And every time you get the ball in possession, you feel more pressure because you're like, I've got to make something happen. And everyone from the centre-backs to the full-backs had to do something special just to get the ball forwards. And it was like, that's not right.
No.
Like Cody's getting in and stuff and he's like looking for a pass, no one wants the ball. And you know, the pressure just ramps and we didn't have many leaders in possession. I think we had some decent leaders out of possession. You know, the keeper being one of them, Cody being another one, Coleman who was in and out of the team, and then obviously was injured for a while, Tarkowski. But you think of the players in possession, no one was really taking the game by the scruff of the neck, aside maybe from Damari Gray, but then Damari Gray wasn't producing when he's done that.
And two players who we brought in the summer who probably should have been doing that more so, Idrissa Gana Guy, Amadou Onana. For me, Onana looks really raw and rough. I don't think we're the right fit for him. I think Idrissa Gana Guy is I think in possession, I don't think he's great. I think the Bournemouth game, especially last game of the season, he was fantastic. And he's great at winning the ball back. I don't really know where the right fit still for Idrissa Gana Guy. I don't think those two players are really the right fit for us.
No, I think Dyche got close to finding it at the end. I think putting Zakore in there and allowing Zakore that freedom meant that Guy didn't have to go forwards. It's like, I stay here now, and that's where I'm comfortable. Just stay in here. I don't have to, just keep it simple. But it was like under Lampard, he was expected to come forward. And it was like the minute, we found that last time with Guy, the minute you ask him to play forwards or to try and, he struggles, doesn't he? Just back to Onana though, you know, it reminds me of like, obviously going further back, maybe 15, 20 years ago. It reminds me of the court, where like, lovely player, and you can see he's going to be a top player, but it's like, it's not really right for us.
Yeah.
We're not really getting it now.
You go somewhere else, I'd be
having a lovely sports car in your garage, but you just can't drive it.
Yeah.
And that's a bit like Onana. I think you can see he's a very talented player, and you would like to keep hold of him, but it's just a bit of a luxury that we can't really.
He'd be good in a team who could just manage his minutes, and you play in Europe, and you say you're playing some games in Europe, you're going to play a couple of games at home.
And that's what you'd ideally do with the player who's just come over from France, a young player as well. You would have managed his minutes.
Well, your birthday's number 8.
Yeah, exactly. Go on, score. Yeah, go and get in that box and score.
There's times I watch him, and there's little moments in games where I watch him, and I think, oh, that was good. And then there's time in the same game, I'll turn to you and go, is he playing? I haven't seen him for 20 minutes.
But that's what young players are like, isn't it? And he, you know, he does deserve that chance to kind of, or he deserves patience. And listen, I don't think Evertonians have gotten his back on nothing by any way, shape or form. But yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it?
Well, to sum that first part of the season up, we'll get into January post-World Cup. What sums that first half of the season up for me is the Conor Cody disallowed Merseyside derby goal, where like it took about 5 minutes for him to realise he let us celebrate, he let us over-celebrate. He let us give it where we sit in the park end to the Reds. Yeah. And then it was just like, of all the people as well, for it to be Conor Cody, when they were all saying like, he's a Red. For him to have done that just sums it up.
It is, yeah.
Look, there hasn't been... There was protests 2 seasons ago in 21-22. There was the 27 campaign, who, despite me knowing a lot of people here, I'll go on record saying I didn't agree with walking out in games. I didn't agree with walking out to the team. I know we had a horrible manager.
You did it first, by the way. You did it first.
I was going to do it, yeah, but see how in hindsight. But look, these fan groups or these protests that have been around for a number of years, whether it be Evertonians for Change, Keep Everton in Our City, Blue Union, 27 campaign, I never seen them every week. They didn't have longevity. They weren't good as a presence. This All Together Now campaign is massive. Now, not everyone agrees with this. For all people start commenting, we get it. Still a bit divisive, but more people are on board now than ever. What were you surprised by the amount of people? I mean, we put our name on it. I think. Are you surprised by the amount of people who actually said, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to march before the games. I'm going to be loud. I'm going to protest. I'm not happy with this football club. Did it surprise you, the volume of numbers?
Yeah, in terms of the participation, it didn't, because it's easy enough to say it in the pub, isn't it, or to like say it on Twitter or whatever, but actually voting with your feet and and you know, making that effort before the game. And they've said themselves, it's tough to get people out of the pub. You know, it's bad enough that they're going the match and having to watch that. But the only bit of joy they've got is maybe having a drink beforehand. But we're taking them out of there and we're asking them to come out and do that. And I think it was surprising. I think it's more surprising, I guess, what you said before is the consistency of it, is that they did maintain that support. And it grew, you know, if anything, throughout the season. And credit to them, you know, they've done some brilliant work, and they're starting to reap the rewards. You know what I mean, there's been some change that has taken place, not quite where we want it to be and where they'd want it to be, but no credit to them. You know, some would say the better fans than me, or better fans than me and you, and no one can, you know, very few people could argue with that. But
I'd argue for that.
Listen,
I'd argue that people who are doing this, and I know they get a lot of shit, and I don't think they deserve it. There's good people there. Yeah. Let's not forget, they're only wanting change. They're only wanting change.
Oh,
they're
no,
not in the ground down and saying like we're going to kill people. They're just saying we're sick of getting beat.
Yeah,
we're sick of the way the club's getting ran.
The episode we got coming up, I think was well articulated in that. You know, that it's look, and she was really humble, wasn't she, about the fact that they don't want to be like heralded as heroes or nothing, and not any different to anyone else. They're just like, look, we're just fans. Yeah. You know, and that's it. We're not. Yeah, exactly. We're not trying to represent anyone. We're just giving our collective opinion. So you know, and that resonated a lot with me, because you know, we have, as you say, we have a lot of chats in our own little blue WhatsApp group. But how often do we actually use that chat to be productive?
Do you know what? You are the perfect example of how successful the All Together Now campaign has been, because you've always said to me, I've been, you know me, I fucking cry and moan in our WhatsApp groups. If someone's not happy, I'll, you know, Billy bullshitter, I'll go there, I'll say Mercedes is a great owner, but I've always been quick to judge and quick to blame. You've always had a lot of context behind your decisions. You're always explaining very well, even on this show. And you've always said, like, what do you want? Like, it's not as easy as just getting rid. You can't sack the board. Yeah, you've always been quite like, what do you want? And these guys have sort of came around, and I think they've done things well. And I think you're the perfect example of looking and going, okay, I can relate to what you're saying now. Yeah, because, you know, we went to the meetings, didn't we, in the hot walk, and he presented a lot of stuff. And look, I didn't agree with all of it. I thought a lot of it was, look, every business goes through peaks and troughs and whatever. But some of the points they raised and the way they raised them, and obviously backed up with data, it's hard to argue with that. The data was bad, wasn't it? The data was pretty grim, yeah. It was pretty grim. But, like, you know, just that example that I brought up before, and you start it, like anything, someone brings a point or raises a point here about a particular topic, and you actually sit and think about it, and then you start to think, well, actually, that links to that, and that links to that, and you start following the crumbs. It leads you to some pretty dark. And this where we are now, you can trail up, you can follow the crumbs back to where it's the top, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. And look, again, I do say that enough on this podcast and on other podcasts that I'm on. The football clubs should be ran, and are in general ran, like, you know, any other successful business or unsuccessful business in our case. And, you know, if you haven't got a good leadership team with a strategy that they're going to stick to, and you know, that's got objectives and KPIs and whatever, then you're going to struggle and you're going to fail. And that's ultimately what this club's done. And, you know, whether it's got to lay at the door of Mashiri, it's got to, because he's the people who put, you know, he's the person who's put these people in a position of power that they're unable to, you know, to live up to. Yeah, it's I think we performed really badly as a club for an awful long time. That's my personal opinion. But this year, take the piss. This year, and we'll go to Headlock Gate. I think, and I said this with the podcast with Katie, I think anyone, whoever decided to release that statement, and now, of course, I've got opinions, you've got opinions, no one definitely knows. No one definitely knows if it happens or it didn't happen. So let's just take that little bit out. Yeah. I think whoever released that statement, and that statement was saying it's a profoundly sad day for Everton and Evertonians, we're together, it's all a big bad wolf out there. I think whoever released that statement in hindsight now is probably looking at themselves in the mirror and calling themselves the biggest idiot in the world. I don't think they are, you know. What that did is the people who we go to match with and stuff, people who weren't really against it, then got tarred with the same brush as the people. It just made us look like idiots. Just made them a laughing stock. But I don't believe that the people who either released it or were behind releasing it even think that it was. That's how far down. If that's the case, then I'm terrified. Well, that's what I mean. I am terrified genuinely, because by now, if that was the case, you would have got an apology. Yeah. At least an apology to say, look,
the statement was ill-timed. There was a way that from a public relations perspective, we could have dealt with that better.
Yeah.
And, you know, involving the police at the right time, none of those steps,
All
none
that.
of those law-abiding, sensible steps were taken.
It's when Evertonians were contacting the police and going, have you got this report? No. Like, if you fucking throw some shit
That's
at us,
awkward.
we're going to defend ourselves.
That's awkward, yeah.
And like,
Yeah, you don't do that to Scousers.
Baxendale should have came
Just
out
don't
and
do it to
said,
Scousers, let alone
Baxendale should have
Evertonians.
came out through whoever runs a statement from a lawyer, a PR, an agent, the club, anyone, and she should have clarified the instance. There's been allegations something happened to me. A minor incident did or whatever did occur. But, you know, that's what it is. Everton's in my blood. I get it.
She's got to have authorised that.
No one read the room.
She's got to have authorised that statement, hasn't she? Surely.
100% her name's on it.
Yeah.
Baxendale got headlocked. Ian Wright had to go on a podcast.
I know he did.
The day later,
Apologise.
saying sorry to Evertonians because you've been...
Yeah, he's been
your
thrown
club
under the bus.
Thrown you under the bus, yeah. And all that. And the scenes after that Southampton game where we done an instant match reaction in the park end, looking like three lads who just lost our life savings. And then there's kids chasing Anthony Gordon. Yeah, it's like an episode of Dream Team, wasn't it?
It was like
the scenes of like... I was watching the Twitter that night and like Anthony Gordon going over fucking bollards. Yerry Mina saying he died for the club, banging his chest while he's holding his baby.
I was just waiting for Ted Lasso to turn up. Ted Lasso to turn up and do a post-match interview.
Like, this doesn't happen. Like, why?
It just made the club a laughing stock, didn't it? Again.
And then we get through that. Look, the following week from the Southampton game.
By the way, are we going to go through this week by week?
No, we're to January now. So West Ham after Southampton is where Frank got. It's this last game we got beat. And then we're linked with Bielsa. We're linked with Dyche. I don't think a lot.
Can't remember, who did you want, by the way?
I didn't know. The point is, I don't think the net was. The fields wasn't good for me.
No.
I looked at Dyche and looked at Bielsa and thought, right, they've both got as much chance to fuck this up.
Yeah.
Because Dyche has gone down with Burnley before, and Bielsa's going to try and players away that those players can't play. We get Dyche, start brilliantly. We beat Arsenal 1-0. We have some indifferent results, but if you take your mind back to those first few games of Dyche, what was so different? Because he was getting results and Frank wasn't. It was the same team. It was a worse squad.
Basics.
It was a worse squad. We sold Gordon.
Basics and set pieces. I remember saying it and repeating it. He was just getting the basics of football right and focusing on the things that you can control and, you know, being quicker, taking throw-ins, taking your time on goal kicks, getting your corners right and practicing your corners, both in possession and out of possession. Those things that generally separate the teams, you know, the games against the middle half, the teams in the mid-table and the bottom of the table, and allow you from time to time to beat the top teams, is if you just get yourself organised and make sure that in those moments where you've got a set play and an opportunity to attack their box without any pressure, that you're precise with it. And, you know, he was putting players on corners and set pieces that we hadn't seen take them before. He was taking players off them, more importantly, that we're not capable of taking them. Yeah. You know, he was employing outswinging and deep corners to make sure that our players like Tarkowski, who hadn't looked like he could win it all season, was suddenly winning everything in the air.
Scoring a winner past Arsenal.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the thing for me that stuck out. It was basics, that the team were working harder, but more than anything else, the team looked like they knew how to score. And we go back to that point of, you know, us looking toothless. It then looked like teams were like shaking when we were getting corners. Like, whoa, these are going to win every ball here. And it looked like we were a threat. Now, not always a threat in every moment of the game, but there were moments where we could hurt teams. And that was the big difference for me. And also, it looked like we knew how to keep the ball at the back of our own net as well.
Yeah, true. The second half of the season from Dyche coming in and Arsenal, I know we were bottom of the league. We beat Arsenal. And there seemed to be, it seemed like half the league could be in this relegation scrap. It's like 11th down, there's only so many points. And I think Aston Villa came to Goodison. It was either end of February or early March. They won. And then it was like, well, they've gone 5 points above us now. We can't catch them. We're not good enough to catch them now. And the league started opening up as we went into April.
Start closing up.
Closing up. Teams were pulling away. Palace pulls away. Villa pulls away.
I thought that helped, you know. Like I know at the time people were getting nervous, but the longer that more teams were in it, the more that every single game mattered to every team. Yeah. Whereas the more teams pulled away, I think there were more opportunities for us to take points off those teams in that like bracket, where they didn't have much to play for.
Yeah.
Whereas if they were all down there, every single game would have been a dogfight and every man for himself, so to speak. I think that helped us a little bit.
That Fulham game, that was the one where I don't know what happened that weekend. I can't think what the results. That was the game. And all of a sudden, I then looked at the fixtures and looked at the other team's fixtures and thought, this is bad now. Was there a moment for you where you maybe felt like, God, do you know what? This actually shit. This could be the season.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact game. I think.
But there was that feeling where
yeah,
you
definitely. I definitely thought at one point. I think it dawned on me once we got past that little purple patch that we had on the Dyche, it settled down a little bit, and we started getting draws but not winning. I think the Forest game away felt like a massive missed opportunity. I'm starting to think we've run out of chances here to win games.
Yeah.
And then coming up, obviously we'll come on to this game a few times now as we come towards the end of the episode, but coming up to that game against Brighton, I'm thinking, we're done here. We're going to Brighton, like needing to get something. Not just we needing to get something.
And we've just not won at Palace, and we've just not won at Leicester.
Yeah.
Now Brighton.
Exactly. Yeah, the Leicester game was another one. I mean, but then there's so many moments. What a game that was at Leicester when you look back at it. I mean, at the time, I thought it was a great game of football for the neutral.
Right, good to see you, Judgy. A little technical error there that Judgy addressed at the start of the video. We are continuing the chat on the Everton season review 22-23. We were just talking, Judgy, about was there a moment in time where you felt more nervous than other times? I think you've addressed it quite well. They were talking about Leicester. For me, that Leicester one, if you look back at it, we were on the verge of going 3-1 down on a penalty, weren't we? Just scary moments. So many scary moments.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there was a lot of chat towards the end of the season about Jordan Pickford, and it was a massive save he made from that penalty. I think a lot more credit should have went to the analyst personally, because he's gave him that boss bottle with all of the places where Maddison places his penalties. But nonetheless, he stepped up and he's made a great save. And at the time, it probably just felt like he was keeping us in the game. Arguably in the end has helped keep us in the league. It was a massive point in the end, although there's mixed feelings, wasn't it? Walking away thinking we could or should have won. And it probably brings me on to that Palace game as well, where a lot of people maybe thought that was a point, 2 points dropped. We felt it was a point gained.
Definitely, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, I think going into the Brighton game was the bit that I started to feel really uneasy about it. I was thinking, like, we're going into this game needing to get something now that we haven't picked up points at the other, in the other away games. And, I felt really, really apprehensive, because I was expecting a defeat there, and I'm looking at it thinking, if we get beat there, where does that leave us? Thankfully, we didn't. And I think after that Brighton game, I just thought this team isn't going down.
Yeah, I don't think I was quite that confident. I remember seeing a meme. Everton were 5-1 up in 90 minutes, and someone said, "No, Evertonian is still thinking they're going to win this game." Yeah. It's just our programmed, isn't it? But that Brighton game, if you look back in hindsight, which is what this show is, it's looking back in hindsight. Without that, we're done, aren't we? That was such important. That crazy freak result. I don't care how much of a confident Evertonian you are. No one's seen that coming. That performance coming. And then it trickled in. I think you've said earlier in the show that you thought it was quite a positive that other teams pulled away, and it turned into, it was going to be, Southampton went, and then it turned into last week of the season. It turned into 2 from 3, didn't it? And thankfully we were the third. But I want to touch upon that Wolves game. It's the only time in the entire running I've seen our manager panic, throw Michael Keane up front and stuff, and I think the fan base got a little bit nervous, and you go into Bournemouth, but I weren't sleeping easy that week. I think I said to you, didn't I? I can't do the instant match reaction. Everything goes on. I just can't do it. Bournemouth game itself was everything that we needed it to be. The crowd were with the team. The players. There was 11 man of the matches out there. There really was. Bournemouth did come to try and spoil the party. There's a few chances, but we were told beforehand by Cherry's Red Army on our preview that they were on the beach. Didn't feel like they were on the beach to me, but
no.
We recap that last week, Judgy. Wolves and Bournemouth, the emotions you went through.
Yeah, I just think firstly on the Wolves one, massive credit to the manager. He was working under very difficult circumstances at that time. We'd lost Calvert-Lewin. We'd lost Nathan Patterson, who at the start of that game looked really strong. And I just thought it almost looked like everything was against them. But we touched on the whole Lampard's departure and everything, and what Dyche changed when he come in. One thing I will say, there's absolutely no way that Frank Lampard will do Michael Keane up front. Oh. That was literally old school footy. It was like champ manager. Just throw them all up there.
Yeah.
We'll just play. It's a long ball. And it was what that game needed. It was literally just trying to throw something unexpected at Wolves and just try and bombard them. And thankfully, we got that goal. Big Yerry Mina played a massive part in it as well.
Massive.
Which, we spoke about Decore being a huge catalyst and throwing on that Superman cape in the last few games and being that person we needed, that talisman. But what a role Yerry Mina plays in that run-in as well.
We were crying out, weren't we? I say we don't speak for every Evertonian. I'll change that. A lot of Everton. I'll let it through you. A lot of Evertonians were clamouring for Yerry Mina to come back in. Yeah. Don't forget the manager was there from last week in January, and Yerry Mina was on the bench from February up until I think the Brighton game was actually start of May. So you're looking at there was a long time where Yerry Mina didn't feature, and not that you expect the manager to know everyone. He's coming in blind. I think some podcast he'd done himself. He said that he took a break from football, that they didn't watch it, and it took him a while to realise how important Yerry Mina was going to be. But a lot of fans were clamouring for it, weren't they?
It's fair to say he wasn't convinced, was he? And I can't imagine Yerry Mina is the best trainer in the world. Do you know what I mean? I can imagine he kind of mopes about a little bit, and probably messing around and training and all that. And I don't think that's Dyche's cup of tea, but he's someone who just turns up on the day, doesn't he? Almost like a bit of like a Ledley King, I'm guessing. Doesn't really put more than 50% in training because he doesn't want to get injured. But put that shirt on, send him out at Goodison, and he does invariably deliver the goods. Obviously, the biggest frustration Yerry Mina's career at Everton, because now that's ended, is that he just wasn't able to produce that and wasn't able to stay fit for those periods, and that probably provided more frustration for some of those other groups who are maybe not fans of Yerry Mina than it did, provide joy for us when he was on the pitch.
A couple more questions on that season before we look ahead and summarise at the end. That Bournemouth one, the day for me, it couldn't get here fast enough all week. I was dying for it to get there. I couldn't believe how fortunate we were in a situation that it was in our own hands. It's all I wanted. It's all I wanted when we got beat by Newcastle, when we got beat by Fulham, when we didn't beat Leicester, when we didn't beat Forest. I was just looking at Bournemouth and Wolves and Bournemouth in particular going, can we get there? And it's in our own hands. With no disrespect to Bournemouth, Everton should beat Bournemouth with the stakes that high, and we did. In the game, it was just horrible. Everything from watching the Bet365 at the Leicester score live, people shouting out. Someone shouted, "Red straight to 4-2 down," and someone shouted, "Who gives a shit back?" And it was a little bit chaotic in there. Was it the same for you? We don't sit together. We sit in the same stand. We don't sit together. Was it the same for you? Just feeling a horrible, chaotic 90 minutes.
Yeah, it was like. I think generally round by us, no one was mentioning any of the other scores until we scored. I think it was the general consensus by us was, look, we need to win. Doesn't matter what goes on elsewhere. And look, there was a lot of emotion and stuff, and there was a lot of tension. But once we scored, there was a lot more attention shifting into the other score lines, and just because if they equalised, it was that, you know what I mean. So it was trying to give us that extra bit of comfort. Because if we're winning and the other teams are not winning, then we can almost afford to concede that, there needs to be a big swing. But it was never really that was never really the case. We were always on that.
We were in the 10 minutes of injury time, knowing we were the only game left playing, and that for me was just like heart and mouth.
That was horrible. But I think flipping. Do you know what? A couple of minutes before we scored, I started to look at it going, hold on, we're past that bit. Because I thought we'll come out second half and we'll probably score really early in the second half, and that'll set us up. When we didn't score after 5, 6, 7 minutes into the second half, and starting to think, oh God, another 10 minutes here, and suddenly it'll be panic stations. Thankfully, we did score. It was 55th minute, wasn't it? So it was fairly early in the second half.
It was quite early, and he threw Ellis Sims on, didn't he, to try and make the ball stick a bit more up at the top. And look, we got over the line. I think we mentioned it on our instant match reaction. If anyone hasn't seen it, wants to go back and watch it, we've done the instant match reaction inside the grounds at full time. There was that initial emotion where a lot of people, went onto the pitch. Fine, I'll never judge anyone. It wasn't for me. And I think as that ended, and everyone just took a breath, didn't they? And everyone just wanted to go home. There was no real major celebrations. It felt a little bit muted. You did have that initial roar and that initial relief, but it just felt a little bit muted, and I think that's a sign of where a lot of fans feel we are at the minute. It wasn't cause for celebration, was it?
No, it didn't feel like you guys didn't feel like cause for celebration whatsoever. It was very much that, as you said, or we both said a few times, that feeling of relief and just frustration that we were back there again. But it's like, just put that behind. Let's just move forward. I wanted to just get out of there. I really wanted to just get out of that game. Once it was over, I wanted to get out of the ground and just, because I was annoyed at what the club had put us through. But then again, just generally relieved. And I've used that analogy before of like, it's like, you've got to the end of the month, you've got all these bills building up, and then the money comes in to pay the bills, and like, oh, thank God for that. You don't feel like celebrating and going out and having a champagne and splashing it. You just want to go. I want to go and sit in a dark room, have a glass of wine, and just go to sleep.
Never again. Never go through this again.
Well, yeah, you exactly. You just don't. That's exactly it. You don't want it the same the next month or the next year or whatever that is. So I think that was the overwhelming feeling for me. I can't look again. We don't speak for everyone. I think there are a lot of people that were, overjoyed, and a lot of people that did want to let off steam after that. I literally just wanted to have a good rest, not talk or listen to Everton stuff for a good while. Every week for a good 10 to 15 weeks was just stress, and it was like every result, every game mattered. It was horrible.
Watching Leicester on a Sunday and Leeds on a Monday, and then Leicester again on a Wednesday and Leeds on a Thursday. It was a horrible end to the season. I mean, me and you, we went away from the ground, didn't we? After it, with our mates, we went away from the ground and drank away from it. We just wanted it out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, I remember sitting in this mad diner up by the Vale. What's it called again?
Rooney's.
Rooney's. It's literally like just bizarre. We were sitting in this booth. There was no one else in there, but it was great.
Yeah,
but yeah, definitely. But again, look, it was just it was great to get the job done. As you say, it was a job we expected the team to be able to do. We couldn't have asked for a better scenario, being against the team that, we're just relieved to probably be in the league themselves, but we're more than happy to just say, listen, let's just go into the summer. And obviously their manager ends up departing, which I don't think was too much of a surprise. Although a lot of the media was surprised. We spoke to a lot of Bournemouth fans, didn't we, before that? And a lot of them were a bit disappointed with how the club has performed over the 4 to 6 weeks after they stayed up.
Yeah, and then we can't really. This is a season review, and we're going to catch up again in the summer. We've released our schedule. We are going to do some shows around that schedule when things break. So we will talk about next season more in depth than what we're going to now. But I want to touch on it, Judgy. We've said numerous times we don't want to go through it again. We said this last season. And we've summarised why we think we got into that position. What do we need to do different? Whatsoever, and we're recording this now in July. We've got about a month until the season kicks off. What do Everton need to do to make sure that we don't go through that again?
I mean, I think the first thing to say from my point of view is, if we start the season in the same vein of, being stronger from set plays, being difficult to beat, being strong. Yeah, I'm going to say set plays, I mean at both ends of the pitch. If we get a forward in that can lead the line, and between that forward and potentially, God's willing, Calvert-Lewin can get himself fit. If we can have a target man up there, and we can get other players who can chip in with goals, and that includes the defenders, regularly getting on the score sheet, I think we'll be okay. And when I say that, I think we'll be, good enough to stay out of the mire of, bottom three. I'm not saying we're going to be, in the top half or whatever. I think we'll win enough games to keep ourselves in a fairly safe position. If we don't bring a number 9 in, I mean number 9 of the ilk of Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I mean, he may not have the quality, but just the ability to hold the ball up, to be that presence, to score the odd tap in, to score the odd header. And if we don't bring a wide player in, whether it's an attacking fullback to deputise or to take the place of Michelenko, or it's a wide forward that can get us goals, then I think we could be in a very similar position again, unfortunately. I just think we are lacking firepower, and I think that makes us vulnerable.
Yeah, it's goals and assists. It's players who can win matches and help you win matches for me. It's a number 9, and this won't go down well with a lot of people. For me, it's a new number 9 now. I don't think we can rely on someone like Calvert-Lewin.
No.
And last summer we were going into it going, if only we can keep him fit. It's not going to happen. I think he's broke. I liken him to Ledley King, top player. Frustrating that you can't get him out there every week. I think it's obvious now his body's broke down. I agree with you with a wide player. I think someone who can run at teams, and I will link with Zikanoto from Leeds. I think that's a prospect, someone with pace. He reminds me a little bit when we had Drenthe.
Nonso, you mean?
Not so, yeah. Remember with Drenthe, but Drenthe just ran at teams and shot, and sometimes that's the difference. And yeah, look, a fullback who can attack on the left-hand side. So I think Mykolenko is steady at some of his capabilities. He's steady. If he's getting ran at, he'll probably win that duel if someone's running at him. He doesn't offer anything else, and we missed that. So there's 3 big areas for me. It's a creative player, it's a goal scorer, and to the tackle fullback on the left-hand side. And look, we'll get into it again. That there's looks to be changes off the pitch, which we'll do a show on, I imagine. But I think that can't come quick enough. I think no matter what side of the fence you're on, that needs clarity. That needs a full stop in it. So there's lots of work.
Just briefly before we move past that, obviously the Ashley Young one looks all but done now. There's been some criticism from some groups of fans, but there's also been a acknowledgement that unfortunately that's where we are now. Would you, assuming that we can get the other 2 deals done, of a number 9 to replace Calvert-Lewin, which I do agree with, by the way. What I'm saying is that it'd be great to have him there where you can just bring him on, or you can bring him into the odd game as opposed to relying on him, and a winger who scores his goal. Would you take it Ashley Young just for a season to kind of, if that's the way we've got to work with the budget?
If bringing Ashley Young in means we can get a goal scoring creative winger on number 9, absolutely. I don't think any Evertonian could be able to argue that. And we always say we don't speak for others, but I'll have that argument all day. If you can put goals in this team, I'll deal with Ashley Young for a year. I don't think Ashley Young will start every game. I don't think he will. I think he'll cover both sides, and there might be times where he will start some games because he's more informed. But I'm not excited by the sign. I think the age is a big thing. We're going to cover the Ashley Young one a bit more.
It's similar to the Townsend one, isn't it? I think everyone was really excited by Townsend coming in, but it made a bit of sense at the time. He didn't have much money to spend. He's versatile. He's got a track record in the Premier League. He's experienced. He's a good pro. I think he ticks a lot of boxes for a squad player. He's very old, and he could literally break down, I imagine, at any minute. I mean, he's the same age as us.
He looks better than us, though, to be fair. So I don't think we look as well as he does. Let's just put a full... And I will. Well, let's just bullet point the season then. The very basic questions that are always getting asked on a season review show. Who would you give the player of the season to?
The irony won't be lost on many people, but I'm going to go for Jordan Pickford. I just and the reason being, and this is not the irony of it. The reason I mentioned him or pinpointed him as a player that I think we could sell is because I think he's a very good player, and I think he's a player that a lot of teams will see as a massive asset to them, but a player that I think is replaceable in our position. That being said, it doesn't take away how phenomenal he's been for us as a goalkeeper, and he more than likely will continue to be. It doesn't look like that's going to happen in terms of him moving on. But I think last season, some of the saves he made, some of the and the consistency of his performances throughout the season, I think it's difficult to look past him.
Yeah, it's hard not to give it to Jordan Pickford. Just to try and be different. And my honest opinion as well is there was times last season I was so thankful we had James Tarkowski playing for us. I think he was colossal at times, and the Bournemouth game at the end of the last game of the season, he was unbelievable. That partner, that he had Cody next to him and Yerry Mina, and they were kicking and clearing and everything. And there was other times, and that important goal that got Dyche off to a winning start and really galvanised the fan base. That was him being, strong in the other box. I'd give it to him. I wanted to give it to Seamus Coleman just because I think Seamus Coleman shouldn't be doing what he's doing for this football club, and we're putting him through it. And he wears his heart on his sleeve, and he was in really good form as well before the injury. But Tarkowski for me would get my player of the season. Who would you give goal of the season to? Was there a certain goal that you thought, wow, that sort of took my breath away a little bit?
I wouldn't say took my breath away, but I've had a lot of time for the volley from Tagore away at Brighton. I thought it was by far and away our best performance of the season, and it couldn't have come at a better time. And it come from a player prior to certainly prior to the Bournemouth game that was not really renowned for striking a ball very cleanly, and it was a lovely strike, very difficult skill as well, and a brilliant team goal. So I'm going for the Doucouré volley at Brighton.
Just before I give mine, just a sidebar, Doucouré, how important was he? And it came from nowhere in January. We were sort of there was no riots, there was no disappointment, there was no aghast to Frank Lampard wanting him gone. From that to what he's done.
I know, he showed a lot of character. He showed a lot of quality. And again, credit the manager because he got that out of him. We didn't see it coming. Frank Lampard certainly didn't see it coming because he wanted them out. But Dyche seen something in there that he played around with those three, didn't he, in terms of changing responsibilities. Anana initially got that responsibility under Lampard to go and score goals. Dyche kind of stuck with that briefly. I know he was in and out with a few knocks when Dyche first come in as well. Guy was kind of caught between being a defensive midfielder, then he was a ball playing midfielder, and Doucouré just didn't fit in at all. But Dyche brought him in at first as the combative player against Arsenal, and he had a great performance in that game where he was just covering every yard, kicking every ball. I believe he did play in that game, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
I remember quite early on, it was just all about getting across the pitch. And then he realised that we needed a goal-scoring midfielder, and he put that on Doucouré's shoulders. You touched on the fact that Dyche had been out the game for a season or two. Probably the last time Dyche could remember Doucouré playing particularly well would have been in his Watford days, and that's what he was to Watford. He was that player who arrives late in the box. He's constantly running in behind. And listen, as you say, couldn't put any better. He was just phenomenal in those last few games.
Yeah, my goal of the season, one that did take my breath away, was Demarai Gray at the Etihad. I didn't see that result coming, didn't see that goal coming. Gray's quite frustrating. He scored a similar one at Bournemouth in the cup, and it's quite frustrating that he's got that in him, and you just don't see it all the time. But on that day, that was an absolute screamer. So I'd give it to that. Game of the season, I'll go first. It's Bournemouth for all the reasons I've just spoke about. I think that the enormity of that game and the fact that the fans were with them. The players give everything, and we got over the line. I'd go Bournemouth. Would you agree, or have you got an alternative opinion?
Yeah, I think for the enormity of the game, it would be Bournemouth, but I'm going to go with Brighton, just because I think it was an outstanding team performance. That performance wouldn't have been out of place, or wouldn't have been disregarded as it being a Man City who put that 5-1 in. It was a ridiculous, ridiculous result and a ridiculous performance. So I think that performance would go down, and it would stand toe to toe with most of the best performances we put in the Premier League. It was brilliant.
Yeah, that brings us to the end of the 22-23 season review. We said it last season. We don't want to go through again. I'm repeating it, Everton. Please don't put us through this. Me and Judgy want to be in the pub with a pint and talking about qualifying for Europe and good cup runs and good players, and can we keep hold of good players? And I think unfortunately we're a little way off that at the minute. I think it's going to be tough this season, but I don't want to go through this. I don't want to be last game of the season job again. I want to be able to sleep in April. I'm sure you do as well, Judgy. But anyone who disagrees or agrees or wants to leave some comments, please do in the comment section. We will try and get back to you. Over on the Twitter and the Instagram, which is @AcrossTheParkPC. We've got the schedule for the shows coming out in the summer, some really good shows, like we said at the start. And we're also going to do some bonus shows around that when things break and drop and things. We'll do the usual coverage as well. So, yeah, please like, share, and subscribe. It's really important to us. But as far as 22-23 goes, get out of my sight. Thanks for watching. Up the fucking Soffies.